What's up, guys? This is Laser Monkey. Welcome back, and welcome to episode 2 of How to Get Fast Live, my somewhat weekly, maybe more than weekly, live stream, giving you guys what you want on tips on how to get fast. And today, we're going to be focusing on some basic F2L improvement techniques. So let's get right into it here. So let's first talk about F2L. What is Lookahead? All right. Lookahead is not just during F2L. Lookahead is something that you do throughout the entire solve. So you don't want to be just looking ahead, like just when you start your F2L, you start looking ahead. The lookahead starts with the cross. So what we're going to start off by doing here is I'm going to do just a quick example solve of how I'm going to use lookahead in my average solve. So as you practice a lot and as you improve, this will become natural. But when you start, you want to try and not focus on what you're doing. So first, I would recommend by being able to do your crosses blindfolded. So in this case, I just know that this is how I'm going to do my cross. And instead of looking at my cross while I'm doing my cross, I'm looking at my F2L. So I saw this corner. This is the only corner I can see. So immediately I look for edges. I know it's not this one. I know it's not this one. And I can assume that it's not that one. And I saw that this is a blue, right? So this is one of the blues. This is the other one. And I see the other blue here. So I can assume that this one is the orange blue that I'm looking for, right? And then as I'm inserting this, I saw this, right? And so I can insert it. The key here is to be super, super familiar with the way you insert your F2L pairs, right? Because if you have to think about it, you're not going to be able to look ahead very well, right? So here, I can see that this is how I'm going to set up my F2L pair, and I'm not even going to look. I'm not even going to look at that pair as I'm doing it. I'm only focusing on how I'm going to solve this next pair. And as I'm solving this pair, I'm only focusing on what the OLL is going to be. As I'm doing the OLL, I'm looking for the PLL, right? And over time, as you do this over and over again, everything will start to make more sense, right? So the key is to practice a lot, but don't do fast solves. Here are the ways I recommend practicing. First, the most common technique is to do slow solves. Try not to time your solves too often. Actually, most of my solves, I would say 80% of my solves are done without a timer. So I would recommend doing this. Just solve around the house, try and solve slow enough that you don't pause at all. So you have continuous turning, right? Like this. You see how I am not pausing at all. Now, for some of you, you might have to turn a lot slower than this, but that's okay. Eventually, you'll be able to slowly speed up. All right? So the second technique I recommend is if you're having trouble with continuous turning, I would recommend using a metronome. And you can get metronomes, like the physical ones, or you can just use an app. I like to use the Tempo app. This is the app that I use on my phone. So you can set it to a tempo. So we're going to set a tempo here. Let's see. Probably not 256. Let's do 4/4. I don't know. It doesn't really matter. But let's do a much slower tempo. Maybe let's start off with like a 72. That seems good. I'm just going to check to make sure that we're streaming in good stuff here. All right, so we're gonna start this metronome. Okay, so the technique here is you have your metronome going, and the point of this is to decrease pauses. And you want in your normal solves, right? You want to be turning your full TPS the entire time. And I don't think anybody can actually do this, but if you can turn maybe 80% TPS and not pause at all, your solve is going to be faster. You don't want to go like this and then pause and then pause. You want to go a smooth, continuous solve. So using the metronome is going to help you practice not pausing. So here I'm just going to do a turn on every metronome no matter what I'm doing. So ready, set, go. And notice here how I'm doing a double X cross. When you go slow, you can often improvise with some interesting techniques. And while I'm doing this, I'm looking the entire time at what I'm going to be able to do for this F2L pair. And now you might want to force edges, because that might be useful. And now I'm looking at this OLL, and I'm just going to cancel into it. When you turn slow, you should be able to be much more efficient. The key is to get the lowest number of moves possible, right? And doing this should help you with that. And if you're not too familiar with your F2L cases, if you can't just look at an F2L case and know immediately how you're going to solve it without thinking about it, that is something you need to work on. Lookahead is most effective when you know all of your F2L cases like the back of your hand. You know them super, super well, and you don't have to think about it. It's more of a subconscious thought. Because when you're speed solving, you don't want to be thinking about how to solve a pair. But when you are practicing slowly, that is exactly what you want to think about. So when you're doing your slow solves, you want to think about exactly how to solve it. And if you're having trouble with how you're going to solve your pairs, or if you're having trouble with doing them without paying attention to them and focusing on your next thing, another technique that I highly recommend that I've used a lot in the past is stage blind. And this is a technique that I've used a lot. And what this technique basically is you can either close your eyes or get somebody, if you are fortunate enough to have some help, they can cover your cube, right? So the point is, you look at the cube and you see how much you can do blindfolded. So in this particular case, I'm going to close my eyes and see how much I can do just blindfolded, right? So I looked ahead to this one, right? And so once I finish, I'm going to open my eyes, and as fast as possible, I'm going to try and see what I'm going to want to do for the next one. So I am going to look ahead here, and I looked ahead. I didn't just look at this first F2L pair. I looked to see what my second F2L pair would be as well. And then maybe at the end, as you're doing the stage blind, as your eyes are closed, once you're getting towards the end of your sequence, you can open your eyes again and then try and look ahead to the next pair so that you don't even have to stop, right? And this is a really good way to make sure that you're actually not having to look to do your solves. So that is a technique. I would say use it in combination with the other techniques, because you definitely don't want it to be your only technique, because there you're not practicing good look ahead. You're practicing doing things without looking at them, and that's really the goal of that. So yeah. So that pretty much wraps up my basic F2L improvement techniques. If you guys have any questions, I definitely throw them in the chat right now. As I'm just going to do some quick tip F2L look ahead techniques. And remember, you want to look ahead during the entire solve, but we're just going to do some F2L specific, because that is what most people seem to want to do. All right, so let's see. This is interesting. I'm going to try and build an X cross here. And when I'm doing something like this, I can immediately see that I'm going to build my things like this, right? So the entire time I'm tracking this. And I saw that this was red, and I thought that might be what I was looking for, but it wasn't. So as soon as I see this, I'm immediately looking for this. And I saw that as I was doing it, and I'm going to do it like this to orient edges. And one thing you might want to keep in mind when you're doing... One thing you want to... Yeah, I can't help you guys with pauses between blind corners and edges. But what I can help you with is when you're inserting your F2L, let's see. Let's just get to a case here. So say I had a case like this, right? And I have an F2L pair, and this is so easy that if you know F2L, you can probably do this, right? Would you want to rotate it like this, or would you want to put it in the back? And the answer is you want to put it in the back, because when you have empty F2L slots in the front, you can see a lot more. But say if you insert it like this, well, you already know what these pieces are because you saw this F2L pair and you saw that this was going here. So now you've taken out these two stickers over here you don't know. And so you've limited your vision. And the key is to maximize vision. So you want to put it in the back. And see here, just from this position, when I'm looking for the edge for this corner, I can see just from this position that it's not any of these edges, and then it must be this edge. Right? And that's really useful when you're inserting stuff into the back. If you have a choice between front and back, prefer the back. But of course, there are exceptions to every rule. But that's just a general rule, and that should help you. All right. All right, somebody's asking about how to reduce pauses from OLL to PLL. So one thing I like to do is I always orient my edges. Most of the time, instead of just inserting my F2L like this, I will usually do a sledgehammer or something, edge orientation. And the key is to sometimes, now this is what I do, and this may not be the best technique in most situations, but if you can focus on what is going to show up in the front, I can see here that this is kind of random. And I know intuitively, I've done so many solves that this is an R perm. And I know that may seem crazy just looking at this, but I know that I guess these are the same color. And then I can see that this is a bar. And I know that this is going to be an R perm. So if you can just practice looking at your F2L, if you can practice looking at your PLLs and trying to recognize them just by looking at two sides or even just one side, trying to guess. One technique that actually Felix presented, I think it was Felix, at Worlds 2013 that was very interesting to me, this was back when I averaged around like 14 seconds, is trying to work on your intuition by literally just looking at an OLL and trying to predict the PLL, closing your eyes and doing both. So I'm going to try and do that here. All right, so I did the wrong U-perm, but I guess I knew that it was a U-perm, or maybe it was solved. I don't know. You guys can let me know on the stream. But I think that's a really interesting technique to use. F2L algs. Somebody's asking where they learn where to learn F2L algs. I think if you go on the speed solving wiki, there is, I believe, like 42 cases or something, and they have all sorts of ways of executing them. I would just look up F2L algorithms. Tips on learning algs. That's going to be my next stream. So I'm guessing this weekend I'm going to do a stream about learning algorithms. Cross to F2L transition, and this cross to F2L transition is what I'm going to end the stream with today. When you're doing your cross to F2L transition, the cross to F2L transition is really not you have to see your F2L during the cross, and that's the key to having a smooth cross to F2L transition, right? So here, if you practice a slow solve like this, right? I did an X cross, so maybe this is a bit more difficult, but you want to have an idea of at least a corner. That I usually do corners and try to find the edge for a corner just because it has white, so it's easiest to see. This is part of the reason that I'm not color neutral and I only solve white and yellow. But you want to have an idea of at least one corner that you're going to want to look for, and then so you can just immediately look for it. And I didn't see it here, so I just did a rotation. I saw it and immediately do it and see this block and immediately try and figure out how to solve that. And then as I'm doing this, I'm actively looking for my next block, and I saw it. And notice how I did this, right? You don't want to do this. You want to do this to orient the edges. And that might not be the best, but I don't know. I just like doing oriented edges. And I guess I probably should learn more COLL. But yeah. So that is about it for this quick stream on, F2L improvement techniques. These are just some of the basics. If you guys want more in-depth stuff, give me some details on what you guys need help on, and I can definitely do that in a future stream, or maybe if it's a quick question, answer it right now in this last couple minutes of this stream. So yeah, leave comments below if you have any final questions, and then we're going to close out this stream. Yeah, so somebody in the chat asked about how do you practice lowering times, because he's just doing random solves. And the key is, I think you're going to want to go back and watch the replay. You want to go watch the replay of this stream, and I talked about some good techniques. You want to do slow solves and solves without a timer, because when you use a timer, you tend to do bad solves. So I've noticed that I notice the most improvement when I take the longest break from doing time solves. And that's the key. How do I do F moves? I don't know. I just kind of do. When I'm doing F2L, I try not to do F moves. I see that a lot of, I'd say intermediate solvers, like sub 20, but like mid teens, high teens, even low teens, are doing inefficient F2L solutions. So if you're solving at that level, I would recommend going back and looking at all the F2L cases, comparing them to algorithms, and seeing if there's anything really inefficient that you're doing and something quick and easy that you can fix, because you want to have the most efficient F2L solutions, and you want to know them really well. Trying to practice with bad F2L solutions is just going to hinder you, and it's an unnecessary obstacle in your path to cubing improvement. So yeah, that's about it. Thank you so much for watching this F2L improvement stream. Next up is going to be how to learn algorithms, how to go about learning algorithms. We're going to cover like how I learn stuff like G-perms and stuff. That's going to be either Saturday night at 7 p.m. or possibly Friday night at 7 p.m. So look out for that. I will try and post a stream at least a few hours before, maybe a day before. But yeah, that's about it. Thank you so much for watching. This is Laser Monkey. Out.